Picture this. You spend 2 hours listening to her complain about her coworker, her mother, her friend's drama. You nod, you ask questions. You offer solutions. She tells you the solutions won't work. You listen more. You validate. You comfort. This is Tuesday, Wednesday, every day, then one day. You try to share something that's bothering you at work. 5 minutes in, she checks her phone. 7 minutes in, she says you're overthinking it. 10 minutes in, she tells you she can't handle your negativity right now. She needs you to be strong. And just like that, you're labeled as needy for wanting the same support you provide every single day. Welcome to the emotional labor scam. The unspoken contract in many modern relationships where men are expected to be unpaid therapists, constant validators, and emotional shock absorbers, while their own needs get dismissed as weakness. This is about a profound double standard that's quietly destroying men's mental health. And nobody wants to talk about it. Many modern women have turned emotional support into a one-way transaction. They've weaponized the language of mental health to demand constant emotional labor from men while offering nothing in return. And if you dare to express your own needs, you're not sensitive. You're not human, you're needy. Research from Lancaster University analyzed nearly 200,000 posts on relationship forums. The shocking finding? Men discussed heartache more than women. Men sought emotional support more than women. Once the barrier of social stigma was removed, once men could speak anonymously, they revealed something society refuses to acknowledge. Men are just as emotionally invested in relationships as women. The difference isn't capacity, the difference is permission. Women are praised for emotional expression. Men are punished for it. Here's how the scam works. She texts you throughout the day about every minor annoyance. Her boss looked at her wrong. The barista was rude. Her friend didn't respond fast enough. You're expected to respond immediately, to provide emotional validation for each microscopic grievance. But the moment you need to process something difficult, suddenly she's overwhelmed. She can't handle your emotions. She needs space. Or worse, she suggests therapy, as if your natural human need for partner support is a pathology requiring professional intervention. The language itself reveals the con. Society describes women's emotional expression as being in touch with their feelings, being authentic, being vulnerable. But when men express the exact same needs, the vocabulary changes. Men aren't vulnerable, they're weak. They're not in touch with their feelings, they're needy. They're not seeking support, they're being a burden. This linguistic sleight of hand allows society to demand emotional labor from men while denying them the right to receive it. Many women now approach their partners like a therapy session where only one person is the client. They want to process their feelings extensively, explore every nuance of their emotional experience, and have their partner serve as an active listener who validates without judgment. But therapy is a paid professional service with clear boundaries. Therapists don't dump their problems on their clients. Yet this is exactly what some modern women expect from their partners, with none of the boundaries and none of the compensation. The double standard becomes even more visible when you examine how emotions are policed differently by gender. A woman crying is considered healthy emotional release, but a man showing any emotion beyond stoic strength gets immediately pathologized. If he's sad, he's depressed. If he's frustrated, he has anger issues. If he needs reassurance, he's insecure. The same emotional range that's celebrated in women becomes evidence of dysfunction in men. This is about women and society refusing to extend the same grace to male emotions that they demand for themselves. Many women will claim they want men to be more emotional, more open, more vulnerable. But watch what happens when men actually do this. The moment a man reveals genuine vulnerability, many women lose attraction. They become distant, critical, they start seeing him differently. Because what they actually want isn't a partner who has emotions. What they want is a partner who manages their emotions for them while appearing to have none of his own. Women with anxious attachment styles require constant reassurance, frequent validation, and extensive emotional processing. These are considered legitimate needs. Therapeutic literature is full of advice for partners on how to accommodate anxious attachment. But when men with similar attachment needs express the same requirements, they're told they're codependent. They're told they're too much. The needs aren't different. The gender is different. The judgment is different. Some women have essentially created a psychological buffet. They want the freedom to express every emotion without filter, while their partner provides unwavering support. But they also want a partner who never burdens them with his own emotional needs, who remains a stable foundation regardless of his internal state. This isn't a relationship. This is emotional colonialism. One person extracting resources from another without reciprocity, without fair exchange, without recognition of the extraction taking place. Here's a pattern that many men will recognize. She can spend hours talking about her problems, but if you take more than 10 minutes to discuss yours, she's exhausted. She can text you 20 times a day seeking reassurance, but if you send 2 messages expressing concern, you're being clingy. She can cry frequently and demand comfort. But if you show sadness once, she's worried about your mental health. The metrics aren't equal. The expectations aren't balanced. And if you point this out, you're being difficult. The therapy industrial complex has enabled this dynamic. Many modern women are in therapy, which is fine. But here's what's happening. Women come home from therapy and expect their partners to function as an extension of their therapeutic hour. They want the same unconditional validation, the same extensive processing, the same therapeutic language, but they're not paying their partner. They're not respecting their partner's emotional capacity. They're treating their partner as an emotional service provider who exists to facilitate their healing. When you express a need, watch how it gets reframed. You don't need support. You need therapy. You're not struggling. You're not dealing with your issues. You're not seeking partnership. You're being codependent. This language shift serves a specific purpose. It takes your legitimate need for reciprocal emotional support and transforms it into a pathology. This is gaslighting dressed in therapeutic vocabulary. Consider the concept of emotional bandwidth. Everyone has limited emotional capacity. This wisdom is widely accepted when applied to women. If she's stressed, if she's overwhelmed, men are told to give her space, reduce demands, take on more load. But when men reach their emotional limit, they're told to push through. They're told to be stronger, as if masculinity is a shield against burnout. The social media age has amplified this problem exponentially. So many modern women spend hours consuming content about their feelings. Instagram therapists, TikTok psychologists, relationship coaches. They learn an extensive vocabulary for their emotional states. But here's the issue. This entire industry focuses exclusively on validating women's emotions and explaining why they're entitled to have them all processed by their partners. There's no equivalent content telling women they need to manage their own emotions. There's no content establishing that men's emotional needs matter equally. Some women have turned emotional support into a performance they rate and critique. Did you listen actively enough? Did you validate correctly? Did you respond in the precise way that made her feel supported? Men are walking on eggshells, trying to provide perfect emotional support, while receiving none themselves. And here's the cruel part. Even perfect performance doesn't earn reciprocity. The system isn't designed for reciprocity. It's designed for extraction. The crisis of male mental health is directly connected to this dynamic. Men are experiencing depression, anxiety, and suicide at alarming rates. And one major factor is emotional isolation. Men in relationships often report feeling more alone than single men. They have someone physically present but emotionally absent. They have a partner who takes their emotional support but provides none. This isn't a personal failing. This is a structural problem created by deeply unequal expectations. Many modern relationships are emotionally abusive toward men. Abuse isn't just physical violence. Abuse includes systematic denial of basic needs. It includes punishment for expressing vulnerability. When women deny men's emotional needs, mock their vulnerability, and demand constant emotional servicing while offering none, That's abuse. But because men are stereotyped as oppressors and women as victims, this abuse remains invisible. Men suffer in silence, believing they're inadequate rather than recognizing they're in an abusive dynamic. The comparison to financial dynamics is revealing. Imagine a relationship where the woman expected the man to pay for everything while she contributed nothing financially. Society would immediately recognize this as exploitative, but replace financial resources with emotional resources, reverse the genders. And suddenly it's not exploitation, it's just how relationships work. Men provide, women receive. And men are bad partners if they expect anything in return. Let's examine the specific ways this double standard manifests in everyday situations. She has a bad day at work. You're expected to clear your schedule, put down what you're doing. Listen for as long as it takes. Now flip the script. You have a bad day. You try to share. She's too tired. She has her own stress. She can't take on more negativity. Or she listens for exactly 3 minutes before offering a generic solution and changing the subject. The disparity is staggering. But if you mention it, you're keeping score. You're being petty. The goalpost shifting is another insidious tactic. Early in relationships, some women present themselves as low maintenance, easygoing, not needy. But once commitment is secured, the expectations change. Suddenly she needs daily processing, constant reassurance. And when you're confused by this shift, you're told people's needs change. She's being more authentic now. Translation? She was managing her presentation to secure commitment. And now you're expected to meet demands that were hidden during courtship. Consider the phenomenon of emotional blackmail disguised as sharing feelings. Many modern women have learned to weaponize vulnerability. I feel like you don't care about me when you spend time with your friends. I feel anxious when you don't text back immediately. These statements are framed as vulnerable sharing. They're actually demands. Once something is framed as a feeling, you're not allowed to challenge it. Her feelings become tools to extract compliance. And if you resist, you're emotionally unavailable. The manipulation is brilliant. The concept of emotional availability is used asymmetrically. When men struggle to open up, they're emotionally unavailable. They need therapy. They need to do the work. But when women aren't available for men's emotions, it's because they're setting healthy boundaries. They're protecting their energy. The same unavailability is framed as pathology in men and wisdom in women. Men are pushed to be more emotionally expressive while simultaneously being denied safe space to express those emotions. It's a trap. Open up and be rejected for weakness. Stay closed and be rejected for emotional unavailability. Either way, you lose. The dismissal of male depression and anxiety is particularly cruel. Mental health awareness has increased dramatically, but this awareness is heavily gendered. Women's depression is taken seriously. It's discussed openly. Partners are educated on how to support depressed women, but men's depression is still stigmatized, minimized, and mocked. A depressed man is told to man up, to push through, to stop being lazy. His depression is seen as weakness rather than illness. And in relationships, many women have no patience for a depressed partner. They signed up for a strong man, not someone who's struggling. They're sympathetic for maybe a week, then it becomes an inconvenience. Their needs aren't being met. He's bringing them down. He needs to get help, which means get better so he can go back to meeting her needs. The same women who demand understanding for their mental health struggles show no understanding for his. Let's address the socialization argument. Many people claim women provide more emotional labor because they're socialized to be more empathetic. Men aren't socialized for this, so they can't provide it. This argument fails on multiple levels. First, it assumes socialization is unchangeable destiny. Women weren't socialized to be engineers or CEOs, yet feminism rightly insists they can and should enter these fields. Why doesn't the same logic apply to emotional labor? If women can overcome socialization to compete in traditionally male domains, why can't they overcome socialization to provide emotional support? Second, this argument ignores that men do provide emotional labor constantly. The hours of listening, the constant management of her feelings, the suppression of their own emotions to maintain stability. This is all emotional labor. It's just invisible because it doesn't match the female model of emotional expression. The asymmetry in processing time reveals the deeper inequality. Research shows that in many heterosexual relationships, women spend significantly more time discussing their emotions and problems than men. But this isn't because men don't have emotions or problems. It's because men have learned their processing time isn't valued. Men have learned to compress their emotional experiences into brief summaries that won't burden their partners. Men have learned to solve problems independently rather than using their partner as a sounding board. This isn't emotional unavailability. This is adaptation to a system that punishes male emotional expression. Men aren't less emotional. They're more efficient with their emotions because they have to be. The contradiction in what many modern women claim they want versus what they actually reward is striking. Countless women say they want a sensitive man, a man who cries, a man who shares his feelings. Then they date such a man and lose respect for him. They find him weak, they become critical, they withdraw sexually. Because what they actually want isn't a genuinely emotional man. What they want is a fantasy. A man who appears sensitive, but is actually just highly attuned to her emotions. A man who can cry at movies, but never about his own pain. A man who shares feelings, but only the right feelings in the right amounts at the right times. This impossible standard leaves men confused, ashamed, and emotionally isolated. The crisis point in many relationships comes when men finally express their needs clearly. After years of suppressing, after years of providing support without receiving it, men reach a breaking point. They say clearly, "I need emotional support too. I need this relationship to be reciprocal." And many women respond with shock, anger, or dismissal. Shock, because they genuinely never realized how one-sided the dynamic was. Anger, because they interpret his needs as an attack on them. Dismissal, because they don't believe his needs are as important as theirs. This moment reveals whether the relationship can evolve or whether it's fundamentally unequal. Some women hear this and change. They recognize they've been taking more than giving. They commit to reciprocity. But many women don't. They accuse him of keeping score. They say his needs are too much. They threaten to leave. Because they don't want an equal partner. They want an emotional servant. The selective memory around emotional support is revealing. Many women genuinely believe they provide equal emotional support in relationships. They can recall instances where they listened, where they comforted, where they were present, but they don't track the ratio. They don't notice that for every one time they provide support, they receive it 10 times. They don't recognize that their 5-minute check-in doesn't balance your 2-hour processing session. They don't see that asking "how was your day" isn't the same as sitting with someone through genuine distress. The disparity is invisible to them because society has taught them their emotional needs are special. Society has taught them that any support they provide is generous rather than expected. The economics of emotional labor becomes clear when you examine the trade-offs. In traditional relationships, there was an implicit exchange. Men provided financial security. Women provided emotional caretaking. This arrangement had problems, but it was at least a recognized exchange. Modern relationships have dismantled half of this equation. Women no longer see themselves as primary emotional caretakers. They expect emotional reciprocity, or even for men to do more emotional labor. Fair enough, but society hasn't dismantled the expectation that men provide financial security. Men are still expected to out-earn, to pay for dates, to be the financial safety net. So, men are now expected to provide both financial resources and emotional caretaking, while women provide neither consistently. The contract has become entirely one-sided. The alternative to this dysfunction exists. Healthy relationships involve genuine emotional reciprocity. Both partners can express vulnerability. Both partners receive support. Neither partner's emotions are treated as more valid or more important. This isn't complicated. This is basic partnership. But achieving it requires both people to recognize that emotional needs are universal. That emotional labor should be shared. Many modern women haven't learned this. They've been taught they deserve unlimited emotional support while owing none. Changing this requires men to refuse unequal arrangements. The path forward for individual men starts with self-awareness. Track the emotional labor in your relationship. Notice who provides support, who receives it, how much time is spent on her emotions versus yours. This accounting isn't about keeping score in a petty sense. It's about gathering data to understand the reality of your relationship. Then comes boundary setting. You're allowed to say no to emotional processing sessions when you don't have bandwidth. You're allowed to say, "I need support right now," and have that need taken seriously. These boundaries will feel uncomfortable. But boundaries are necessary for any healthy relationship. The question many men face is whether to try to fix the relationship or leave. This depends on your partner's response to feedback. If you express that you need more emotional support and she responds with defensiveness, blame, or dismissal, you have important information. She doesn't see you as deserving equal emotional care. No amount of communication will change someone who fundamentally believes she's entitled to more emotional support than she provides. But if she responds with genuine recognition, with commitment to change, the relationship might evolve. Watch behavior, not just words. Remember this. Your emotional needs are not a weakness. They're not excessive. They're human. Any woman who tells you otherwise is telling you she doesn't see you as fully human. She sees you as a tool, an emotional support animal. You deserve better. Every man deserves better. And the only way this changes collectively is if men individually refuse to accept emotional servitude as the price of relationship. Demand reciprocity. Expect equal care. Value your emotional health as much as you value hers. And if she can't meet that standard, have the courage to walk away. Because being alone is better than being in a relationship where you're constantly alone anyway. You don't need someone who treats you like an unpaid therapist. You need someone who treats you like an equal partner. Don't settle for less.